Hey, welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Caleb Teskey, coming at you with another great guest tonight. And of course, as usual, before we get into that, I want to send a few shout outs to my dude. Hey, Damien, I'm going to be smoking on some of this Violet Fog tonight from Legacy Vermont Cannabis. Damien DeForge, really great guy. I got my Emerald Visions shirt on. Nick Smith up there with Ashley. Yeah, really good people. I do want to just shout out a couple interviews I got coming up with Trim Stars on Sunday, the 22nd. They're a trimming service here in Vermont. On the 24th, I've got Carly Bader joining me from Willow Industries, which is a remediation company. I'm super excited to have Carly on. And then on Thursday, the 26th, I've got Josh Swider joining me from Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs in California, which is the largest testing lab in the country, from what I understand. And I do want to thank a couple of my previous guests. Also, I wanted to run this. Dusty asked me if I would run this info at HeadyLabelsVermont.com. They're doing labels for different types of cannabis companies. Here's some of their work: Honey Tree Farms, the Green Castle stuff. I thought that was a beautiful label they created, and I don't really know where that's from, but a little shout out for Dusty there, who's been on my show 3 times. Thank you, Dusty, for sending that in. And tonight we got another great guest. I've been trying to get a guest from every state in the country, and tonight we've got a guest from Alabama. I've put a lot of states on the map, and let's just bring him out. It's Antoine Mordican. Antoine, thank you for being here, my man.
Pleasure to be had.
Yeah. Hey, before we get into anything serious, would you mind giving us a 5-minute life story?
Oh man, so let's see if I can rope this into 5 minutes.
Take your time. It don't have to be 5 either.
Well, here goes my elevator speech, as I call it. Hey there, everybody. My name is Antoine Mordican. Originally from the west side of Chicago. Spent majority of my life. Now I spent majority of my life here in Alabama, but spent quite a bit of my life in Chicago. As I tell folks, I graduated from high school in Chicago. I became a man in Chicago, but then came back down to Alabama to advance my education at Alabama A&M University. I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I also have an MBA in project management. I'm an engineer by nature during the day. So during the day-to-day, I'm a distribution engineer. I'm a senior distribution engineer, and I deal with the power lines from the substation to the point of service. However, for the purpose of this conversation, it's more about my cannabis interests. So a little bit about that. Back in 2019 or 18, I believe, I joined a phenomenal group called Minorities for Medical Marijuana, which they wasn't active in Alabama yet. My stepdad was speaking so highly of them, so I went ahead and joined the organization. And then in 2020, I founded my hemp cultivation company, Native Black Enterprise, which we're operating as Native Black Farm, where we cultivate hemp for the purpose of smokable CBD flower. And in 2020, that's when a lot of things in the medical space in Alabama kind of started to get rolling. So around about that time, I already knew that the state of Alabama was trying to bring forth a medical cannabis bill. I think it was like their 4th time trying to get it through. And I had ended up joining this other group and got invited the opportunity to be able to speak in front of the Alabama Health Committee to be able to support the bill, to be able to get it out of the committee so it can get out to the Senate floor and get a vote. So that was an interesting time. I went and spoke at the Alabama Health Committee. It was kind of a unique opportunity there. It was about 5. It was 5 that was against cannabis and 3 of us that was for it. So I was happy that I was there, and I happened to be the only Black that was there speaking on anything and related to it. So that was a unique opportunity as well. And then shortly after that, I became appointed the Alabama State Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, which opened me up to a network of amazing people as I continue to grow and expand my knowledge and my wisdom throughout the industry as well. Building a relationship with valuable friends in the space that wanted to be able to see me win. And a lot of folks questioned on how I was going to try to do what I'm doing in Alabama, but they ultimately supported me for me to be uplifted. So shortly after that, I already knew the medical cannabis program was coming. I tried to serve on the Alabama Cannabis Commission because I knew that they didn't necessarily know much about the cannabis industry. However, the governor, she felt like I wasn't qualified and ended up appointing some other folks, which that was totally fine. So my goal was either I was going to help write the rules or I was going to be one of the first players in the game. So that's when I decided to find my other company, Native Black Cultivation, which we're still a expiring medical cannabis cultivation company here in Alabama. We're still hoping to be able to get a license here in the state, which we'll get all into about what's been going on here in Alabama when that's here to come.
We're gonna hold up. Let me slide you over there. There we go.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a wealth of dialogue about that. What's going on here in Alabama. But since then, man, just been active in the space in the state, been doing a lot of great things. Also work with universities, HBCUs here in Alabama. I've been a part of the social equity accelerator out in Connecticut. So I'm a little bit a part of Connecticut history and just ultimately just trying to be able to continue to expand my knowledge and my reach. And ultimately, like with my purpose on what it is I'm doing here in Alabama is to be able to get as many minorities involved in this industry as possible. And it don't necessarily have to be plant touching, but I know in order for me to be able to make that happen, I have to be a stakeholder. I have to be an owner, so I can be able to delegate a lot of those tasks to be able to allow other folks to be able to get into the space.
And can I ask you? I'd like to rewind a little and just ask you about growing up in Chicago.
Yeah, so man, I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago. I graduated from Manly Career Academy on the west side, if those that may be familiar with it. Coming up in Chicago, man, it was unique. It was unique, I'll say that. I experienced and seen a lot on the west side of Chicago. I probably done seen more bloodshed and brain matter than the typical war veteran has seen. Also, just being raised on the west side, you have to have a certain grit to yourself, coming up in that kind of environment. But as I grew up in that environment, I was kind of ignorant to cannabis, let's say. While I was in Chicago, I never fooled with cannabis of any sort just due to what I was seeing in my surroundings. And I viewed what was told to me by my elders, cannabis as the gateway drug. Like my mom used to ride me around on the west side of Chicago. We'd end up spotting an unfortunate person on the corner that may end up being drugged out. And she'd be like, well, if you want to be like him, go smoke weed. But if you don't want to be like him, go to school and don't smoke weed. So, I kind of stayed away from it until I actually graduated. And then I started doing some research on it myself and learned that this plant is not bad. It's just, we have mental health issues here in the United States that needs to be dealt with.
Mm-hmm. And, I grew up in rural Vermont where we don't have that sort of type of violence. And in Chicago, it seems like there's a lot of murders, there's a lot of gunplay and things of that nature that I never grew up around.
Yeah. Chicago is unique, man. I can say I probably growing up on the west side of Chicago, man, I done had a lot of fist fights. I done had a lot of those. I done pretty much fought ever since I was in kindergarten to about my sophomore year in high school. And that's when folks like, nah, we ain't gonna mess with Twan no more. We gonna let him be.
Okay, cool. So, and I also wanted to stop and just talk about sort of your background in engineering, because I also went to engineering school. And Sweet. I was super curious to hear. You said you did electrical engineering and MBA in project management. I'd love to hear a little bit about your college experience, man.
Yeah, so my collegiate experience was very unique. I graduated from an HBCU up in Huntsville, Alabama. It was probably one of the best decisions that I ultimately made in my life was leaving Chicago and getting far away from Chicago, but also going to a HBCU where I was able to be unapologetically myself and to be around other peers that saw and thought highly of themselves and built those relationships. So while at A&M, it took me 5.5 years to get that engineering degree. So it definitely wasn't an easy task, but we saw it through. While I was in college, I did 4 summer interns with a utility company here in Alabama, which I ultimately ended up being hired on full time upon graduation, which was probably like the easiest senior year I ever had because I had a full time job offer waiting on me before I even graduated. And then once I kind of got into the space of actually doing I guess I've been doing engineering work since 2011. But as once it became my actual profession after graduating, it was pretty cool. But yeah, my collegiate career, man, going to an HBCU was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, My collegiate experience was not the same, but
Yes, sir.
wait, you got some kids yelling in the background? I heard some.
Yeah. I'm married, man. I have a very unique life. Me and my wife, we've been married going on 9 years this December. We have beautiful little ones. Have three little ones. My oldest is 9, my middle child is 5, and my son, he's 2. So I got 2 girls and one boy.
Awesome. Yeah. And boy, one thing that's at the top of my notes here is that when COVID happened, I believe what you said was I took the risk and I bet on myself and maybe cashed out some of your 401k and you bought land and built a greenhouse.
Yeah. So COVID, it was a blessing and a curse to a lot of folks. So, let me kind of walk through how 2020 went for me at that time, especially right before that, we had the Ahmaud Arbery killing, we had the Breonna Taylor killing and things like that. And a lot of companies was taking a stand to be able to reflect on how they was treating they minorities and Black talent. And the company I was working for at the time actually called themselves, reviewing and all that kind of stuff, and came back like, oh, well, we treat everybody fairly. Everybody's salary is, pretty much in line and competitive and things like that. And then it was new opportunities that was coming about that they, quote unquote, wanted to be able to get more minorities into positions of leadership. And before I actually got my opportunity to be in that space, I had other senior Black engineers that was going before me, but they wasn't really given a chance or the shot. And I was considering to myself, I'm like, nah, that ain't gonna happen to me. I done did X, Y, and Z with this company. I done did a wealth of different things. I do go back to do recruiting at my university. I help, train up the crew, the linemen. I spent time out with the line crew. It was a wealth of things I did. So when that time and opportunity came, I figured it would be a little easier transition for me. However, during that year, I interviewed for 7 positions internally and was awarded none. So my level of peak frustration at that point, me evaluating myself and my worth with this company, I'm like, I'm giving these people all my time and my skills and my talent, but they not really valuing me at the asset that I really am. So I was already kind of paying attention to the cannabis industry as it was developing here in Alabama. And, I was trying to get it. I wanted to become a hemp farmer. I was trying to find some friends that had some land that allowed for me to be able to grow on it so I can be able to get a license so I can be able to grow. However, the Lord told me that wasn't the plan for them, that he didn't have that in the cards for me. So that never happened. But when COVID happened, when the CARES Act got signed, of course, a lot of folks 401k dropped. It was tough for everybody at that time. And I just kind of reevaluated everything. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start my hemp company. I'm going to go ahead. I bought me 10 acres right up the road from where I currently live at. And, man, I became a farmer. Probably was one of the hardest things I ever attempted to do. Engineering was tough. Man, being a farmer is hard stuff.
Yeah. And I also went to engineering school and it was hard. But, I've also worked on some farms and boy, oh boy, that is not easy work. In my opinion.
Yeah, he says, man, I never swung a sledgehammer before then. I had no construction experience, but, with me being an engineer, in my opinion, it's nothing that I cannot do. I can at least try it and see if I can get it done. But if I spend enough time with it, I can get it figured out. So, yeah, I just went ahead and built a greenhouse out there. I had uniquely engineered a recirculate drip to drain hydroponic setup on how I was growing my hemp and my CBD, and just took the risk and bet it on myself.
Yeah. And so you were doing hydro, and I was curious to hear about sort of how you built out your facility down there in Alabama and how you found the location and things of that nature.
I found the location. Just I can't take credit for anything, man. All the glory go to God, yo. Like I couldn't just how I ended up finding the land before we even hit the market. When I went out there to look at it, it was perfect for everything I needed it for. They already had the utilities on it, already had water on it, they already had the power on it. They already had a nice little section that I can clear out before I can be able to build my greenhouse and everything. So when I end up getting the land, I ended up just making some good contacts. My neighbor actually out there on the land, he was trying to sell me, I think he had about 13 acres for sale up the road. But at the time, I couldn't afford that. But he ended up being a good friend of mine. He's actually a developer here in Alabama, and he actually helped me build the greenhouse. And that ended up happening just based, with the blessings of the Lord. He saw me out there. I had got the land excavated. I had got the land cleared and leveled. And I had got my greenhouse delivered. And I was out there trying to square everything off so I can go ahead and start my building. And he just saw me out there working, and he looked at me like, you look like you're inexperienced, you're struggling. He like, let me get your hand before you have a damn trapezoid out here. And since then, me and him being connected, he learned a lot about, my intentions and my ambitions on what it is that I like to do here in Alabama. And he actually helped me. We helped build the greenhouse. It took me and about 6 other engineers to get this thing built, but we got it done. And then as he continued to go and learn about the process, so I built everything myself. Like, I didn't buy any grow tables, anything like that. I just bought wood. I built my own grow tables, had a little slight angle on it so I could have a good drain and flow system. Everything was automated. I have everything on timers. My plants was top fed. I played around with a few different setups, a few different nutrients and things like that to see what, just making sure I can be able to produce a good quality product and see what works and what don't work. And the only way I felt like I could be able to get that knowledge was to be able to get that knowledge to myself. Because when I was going to ask people about it, especially those that was already in the state of Alabama, that was in the industry, nobody really wanted to share anything with me. And that's when I recognized that this industry is very bullish and sharky. Like, nobody really want to help you out. So I had to create that opportunity myself. I had to put myself in this position. I had to give myself that knowledge and that wisdom. Nobody else was going to give it to me. So as we went through everything to be able to get into the position that I'm in, then the medical cannabis program started coming, which I had the foresight to already see the medical cannabis program coming. Just due to me just being tapped in with everything that was going on. And my biggest thing it is that I wanted to do, I know if I'm trying to be a cultivator or a farmer here in the state of Alabama, especially dealing with medical cannabis, I'm going to have to deal with the state. So I want to go ahead and get into the hemp space so I can already have that relationship developed with the state so that they know me. I have credibility, that they trust me. If they have a question, I'm able to answer. If they reach out to me, need an email, they need a response, I'm able to get that back to them quickly, versus, some farmers just never get back with the state. I ain't got the privilege of that. Myself as a young black man here in Alabama, I got to be on point. I got to be 10 points up. So I just wanted to make sure that I did everything it is that I needed to do, build a credible relationship with the state, built some great friends and network here in the state of Alabama, then got involved with the grassroots of everything. And then it just kind of blossomed into this beautiful flower that we got today.
Mm-hmm. Could you please tell us a little bit about this state of legalization in Alabama? Because in Vermont, we're fully adult use medical, but I'm curious about the state of cannabis in Alabama.
As I tell folks, it's a slow turning ship. So we now have medical cannabis here in the state of Alabama. It'll be used for certain conditions and symptoms, but not for everything. We won't have anything smokable, no vapes, no flower, everything. The medicine will have to be consumed, in gummies with one universal flavor, which that flavor is citrus, no sugar coat. Suppressors, nebulizers, capsules, patches, and things like that. So we are now in the process of actually awarding licenses, looking like for the third time here in the state as everything continues to grow and develop. But we in the process of actually getting everything stood up. We haven't got too far along. Nobody is growing anything now. We got some folks that's out here building. Nobody actually has a license issued to them as of yet. But we in the process now of getting that figured out. Hopefully next week we'll get more information about that.
And that was one thing that really caught my attention, was no smokable products when you're talking about cannabis. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Antoine, but I certainly do.
Yeah, I got my thoughts on it, but it ultimately is going to, everybody chooses to consume their medicine in different forms in different ways. However, Alabama has been very strategic and low key about this whole cannabis program. And what it's going to really take is for the Alabamans and the citizens to get more involved and reaching out to their representatives to let them know what kind of program that they want. There's a lot of folks here that's ignorant to the program and to the medical program in Alabama. There's folks that's still here in Alabama that's ignorant to cannabis. You know, I had to go up behind when I spoke in front of the Alabama Health Committee. You know, some of the folks that were speaking against cannabis were saying that it's not enough research on it, that it's still the gateway drug, it's the devil's lettuce. You know, I had to come speak behind a woman that said cannabis killed her baby. Her daughter died in a car crash and the driver had THC in his system. I'm like, you know, we know that can stay in your system for months, things like that. But she blamed the cannabis for killing her baby. So, you know, I can't tell nobody how to feel. You know, I can't tell nobody, you know, everybody's going to have their own story and their own experience with cannabis when that time do come. However, I know what it is that it can do. I know what it did for myself and my family. I know what it did for my mother that dealt with breast cancer. I know what it did for my auntie that dealt with breast cancer. And then just based off all the information that and research I did on cannabis, I respect the plant in totality. You know, outside of just the combustion and the recreational use and the medicinal uses, this plant can be used for so much from the top to the bottom. You know, let alone in hemp, industrial hemp. Oh man, we could touch on so many different things.
Oh, so you had some family that dealt with breast cancer.
Yeah.
Me too, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and my mother had her own walking journey with it because she was anti-cannabis. You know, she was the one that told me, you know, not to play with it or not to fool with it because it's a gateway drug. And then she ended up having her trial, and you know, she ended up, you know, coming through with it. And she had a different respect for it, and she ultimately ended up beating and defeating breast cancer. She's a survivor.
Yeah, and I've had a similar experience in my family too. They didn't beat breast cancer, but came around to the idea of trying cannabis as a medicine when they were on all types of opiates. And
oh man, my condolences there. That ain't never good.
Yeah, but you know, it was a powerful experience for my family to see that happen in real time. You know, it's like, oh, you're giving her morphine and fentanyl patches and all types of other shit, and then we give her like a little bit of weed edibles, and she's like,
yeah, she's back to life. She's
back
she's back to life. Her quality of life has improved.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I want to keep this moving. We got I've got a note here that said, this is from April 19, 2023. This is a news story about the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission approved the first 90 applications for consideration for a license. Licenses ranging from cultivator applications to integrated facility applications. And I want to sort of work through a few of these. I think these were some of the stories you sent me. And this was back in April where it sounded like they were going to approve some of the first licenses in Alabama.
Yeah, so Alabama process is pretty unique. So I knew about the program coming, so I kind of already started compiling a lot of my information for my application. And I'm probably one of the unique individuals here in Alabama that compiled my application myself with the help of some good friends. But I didn't pay a consultant to do it because they was trying to charge ridiculous fees like I've just made of money. Like, no.
Yeah, or lawyers, I know in a lot of states handle those type of things.
Yeah, it was crazy, but I ultimately wanted to go through that experience myself so I could be more of a value and asset to my community for those that want to get into the industry in the future. They can come to me and I won't bust them over their head to be able to let them know what it is that they got to do or to be able to help them out, assist them with the application. But folks that were trying to come here to Alabama, you know, they trying to charge us $250,000 to be able to compile an application when the license fee is only $40,000, you know, and who has that kind of money to throw in the application?
That's a license. Yo, sorry to cut you off, Antoine. I hate to interrupt, but did you just say $40,000 for a license application in Alabama?
That's the licensing fee. It's $40,000 for cultivation, dispensaries, processing, secure transportation, and $50,000 for vertically integrated. So how we end up getting here. So the applications was produced September 1st of like 2020. And then we had to submit those applications by the end of December 31st of 2022. And then they took them, they looked at them, then they sent out letters of deficiencies in February. And then after you submitted those deficiencies and those corrections in March, that's when they came out in April that they only had 90 applicants out. I think I like I think only 90 out of like, damn, how many applicants did we have? I think it was like 300 and some applicants that originally applied for the application, that requested the application, and only 90 end up seeing it to the finish line to actually be considered.
What is that letter of deficiency? Does that mean you fucked up something on your application?
Pretty much. So in my letter of deficiency, it wasn't terrible. Everybody received a letter of deficiency. So it could be like, you didn't explain, why you redacted certain information. Your spacing is because Alabama had a very strict format that they wanted, which a lot of them still violated that. But they wanted the spacing to be they wanted the spacing to be a certain amount. They wanted the font to be a certain way. They wanted the headers to be a certain way, the footers to be a certain way. And if it didn't have that, it was pretty much considered as a deficiency. And then if like you was missing some information, or if they had questions about something that to be able to provide a little additional information. And I strategically in my application left in a one-liner just to see if they was going to read my application. So whoever did it at the AMCC that read my application, kudos to you, because you caught it. But for them to catch it and ask for me to be able to expound on that, I felt good about that, knowing that somebody actually read my application versus just trying to, just kind of shotgun blast kind of situation.
What is the ANCC, if you don't mind me asking?
The AMCC is the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. That's commission that's handling all the licenses, awarding, issuing the licenses.
So that's the state regulatory agency down in Alabama.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I see my next note that I have here is from June 12th, 2023. Alabama Medical. Oh, there it is. Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission awards 21 licensees as industry rolls out.
Yeah, that was a gut-wrenching moment.
Yeah. And I feel like you told me on the phone that you were expecting a license maybe, and you didn't get one. Then I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And I got a couple other stories I'm gonna just roll through after this that we talked about on the phone.
Okay. So yeah, June 12th was when they originally awarded licenses, and that was the actual true timeline for them to do so. And when they did that, we all showed up in Montgomery, Alabama, suited to the T, hoping to be able to hear the good news. I had my media team, I even got I got a video out there from that day. And it was just a heartbreaking moment, man, when I heard that my company wasn't, called for a cultivation license. So Alabama is a limited licenses state. Let me give you the landscape. So they can only give out 12 cultivation licenses. Out of those 90 applicants, only 12 applicants actually applied for the cultivation license. So the numbers was already on our side in the cultivation section. And then they only giving out 5 vertically integrated license, 4 dispensary license, unlimited secure transportation license, unlimited lab testing license, and 4 processing licenses. And when they initially awarded the cultivation license, they only awarded 4 cultivators. And based on the law and the statute here in Alabama, they quote unquote got a social equity clause in them that in every category, 25% of the licenses had to go to at least 25% of the license has to go to minority owned and operated companies. When they issued those initial 4 licenses, none of them was a minority owned company. So they had already dropped the ball and messed up there. And then a lot of folks that wasn't awarded a license, like they had some good candidates in there, and folks. It was a lot of unhappy people in that room that day outside of just me.
Was that written in statute?
That is in the statute. That 25% of the license has to go to at least 51% minority owned and operated companies.
And that did not happen right off the bat.
That did not happen. Nope. I think I can't remember the exact number how many minority companies was in that initial round, but yeah, they failed to satisfy that.
Wow.
So yeah, and that, like less than 5 days, they came back and said, "Oh, we recognize some inconsistencies in our evaluations and our awardings," and pretty much put a stay on everything.
Okay, so the next story I have is from June 16th, which was 4 days after this last story. That says Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission puts hold on licensing, cites potential inconsistencies.
Yeah, so that was just the pressure being put on them. that they kind of dropped the ball. They done messed up somewhere, and they recognize that they messed up. And they, and I give a shout out to them and kudos at the moment that, they could have still went forward and pushed that bullshit forward because they had the power to do so. However, they called themselves out, and then quote unquote attempted to try to correct it and rectify the situation.
How did they attempt to correct that?
So they put themselves on the stand. They had another third-party evaluator come in and reevaluate the evaluator's notes. So they didn't reevaluate the applications. They just reevaluated the notes of the University of South Alabama, who was the evaluators of our applications originally, which I don't even know how they even got the bid. But yeah.
Can we talk about that for a second? How did a University of Southern Alabama, is that what you said?
Yeah, University of South Alabama.
How did they end up being evaluating cannabis license applications? That seems kind of strange, Antoine.
I don't know, man. We had the former chairman. He was he served on the board of directors for the University of South Alabama. So I'm not 100% sure if that played a part, but that's definitely a sketchy opportunity that they didn't, allow folks to be able to put a proposal in to be evaluated the applications. Because, however, like my university, which is an agricultural university, could evaluate the application. Tuskegee University could have evaluated the application. The University of Alabama, well, now they ain't no agriculture, but still, nobody knows how they actually got the bid. I feel like it was a discussion that came up. Somebody on the commission was like, nah, I got who gonna handle that. Let's move on to the next order of business.
Huh. I'd like to learn more about that, Antoine.
Yeah, we probably would never know about it. That was when they was doing everything in secretive, behind closed doors. They wasn't having these discussions out in public.
Why not?
I can't even answer why.
Okay.
The goal was for them to be as transparent as they possibly could, and in my opinion, they fell short of that. I ain't gonna lie.
Mm-hmm. I do want to do this. I like to bring myself back up and do a shameless plug. Antoine Mordican, Native Black Cultivation here down in Alabama. Super excited to have you on the show, Antoine.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the next question I have for you is from June 19, 2023. Denied businesses want answers from Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. I don't know if you remember that shit, but yeah.
I was definitely one of those because so when I got denied, when I learned that I wasn't awarded a license, the main thing, the question I had was why. Why was I not awarded a license if I went through the entire process? I submitted my applications. Y'all reviewed the application. Y'all sent me a letter of deficiency. I corrected all those deficiencies. Y'all deemed those deficiencies as corrected for me to actually be considered. And then once it comes to awarding the licenses, we don't get it. The question was why, so a lot of folks had questions like, what was the evaluator scores? What was the scores? Because when they made the announcement, we didn't see our scores until days later. We had to hound them about that to be able to get that. So it was a lot of information they wasn't necessarily trying to give us. And then at the same time of that, so in April, they had a 30-day window where the public was able to chime in and offer comments in support or oppose against certain applicants. I was also asking them questions about that, like, well, what the public was saying. I need to know what the public comments was. So I'm like, I know I got probably at least 200 to 300 comments in support of what it is that I was doing, which I didn't get that information at that time, but they ended up releasing that information later. And I ended up learning that my company was the top company with the most comments from the public.
Could you please tell us, for people who aren't aware about this scoring process for cannabis applications, I don't know if you know how that works, but I know that there are different levels of, you check this box and this box and this box, so you get a higher score. Do you have any idea how that works or how the scores are calculated?
They now release the criteria that the evaluators use to be able to grade the applications. So with our application, we had to submit about 25 exhibits with various of information. So you had to have like a residency exhibit. You had to have a facility design. You had to have a material exhibit. Like we even had to show lists and prices of the material that we was buying. We even had to show the user manuals of the equipment that we was going to use. We also had to provide engineered plans. We also had to have a marketing plan, containing security plans. We had the SOPs, of course. We had to provide so much information in this application, and they got evaluators that had, I guess, quote unquote, experience in evaluating and looking at these things, which we still don't know how true that is to be, who these evaluators was, what their background that was in. And for them to pick anybody here in Alabama to evaluate an application is just not, it don't make sense because cannabis is new in Alabama. Can't nobody say they're an expert on what it takes to be able to stand up a cannabis company here in Alabama besides the hemp folks. Ain't nobody. So I don't know how to
cough.
I don't know how to get that, man.
I agree with you very strongly there, Antoine.
Yeah. I don't know how they got there, but the evaluators, they had their tasks, they had their criteria, and they pretty much did all they had to do in secret. And then by the time it came to be awarding the applications, that's when we found out that we ended up being on the short end of everything and ultimately not being awarded.
And the next note I have here is that since these couple stories that I just asked you about, some people have started to sue the commission down in Alabama.
Yeah, because they messed up, man. they messed up. For one, they didn't have the transparency. They wasn't giving folks the information. It's like nobody was in the knowing. So the only way they was really able to get that information, folks had to put forth some lawsuits for the judge to be able to force them. And that's like the history of Alabama. Alabama ain't gonna do nothing until they are forced to do so, regardless if it's in their best benefit. They just I can't explain it, brother. I just can't explain it. But they have to be forced to do things versus them just doing it.
And I'm gonna slap I'm supposed to do this like every 15 minutes, but shameless plug. It's Antoine Mordican, Native Black Cultivation here, joining me from Alabama. I mean to do that every 15 minutes, but sometimes I get too wrapped up in the conversation and I forget about it.
Yeah, that's love.
Yeah. I did want to ask you about. I feel like I just saw something about the Alabama Cannabis Industry Association, and maybe you did some work for them and just left. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so I'll softly touch on that. So Alabama Cannabis Industry Association is actually one of the organizations that I had joined back in 2020. And the founder of that organization reached out to me because I happened to be the only Black to join the association. And after me and her connected and had conversations about everything, and she was actually the one that presented the opportunity, like, hey, you should come to the State House and speak in front of the Alabama Health Committee. All you gotta do is call them and let them know so we can get your name on the list so you can be able to get up there, and participate in the public hearing. So, I got to give shout outs to her for that because she definitely got me activated in the space. So I was affiliated with her for a year and some change, and then she presented me with the opportunity to serve on her advisory board as she was gearing up to host a conference here in Alabama. But I ultimately ended up stepping down last month sometime just due to some inconsistencies and some things I didn't really understand the handling of some business on how she was going about certain things. And I was just not in the knowing of a lot. So if I'm serving on the advisory board, my duty is to know what's going on and to be able to advise you on how to move forward. But when we had our advisory board meetings, she was missing in every one. So we never really discussed any business, but everything was kind of moving according to planning, and we was getting close to, the conference is supposed to happen. And I got folks calling me, asking me about certain information. I'm like, I hate to say this, but like, I don't know. I don't know. So with me not being able to properly fulfill my duties as an advisor, I had to step down.
Okay. And would you mind telling us, I know you mentioned that Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and it sounds like you've done some work for some other nonprofits. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So Minorities for Medical Marijuana, which we got I got started with them in 2020 when I got appointed as the state director, and just being able to bring a lot of attention to what's going on here in Alabama, especially as I started to travel outside the state and go to different conferences and things like that, especially the big one, MJB, is that happens out in Vegas, to be able to connect with like-minded individuals in the space, other CEOs that's doing things in like Oregon that I would like to do here in Alabama, and and kind of learning from them and pulling some wisdom from them. But however, my landscaping field was a little different. But ultimately, I was just kind of bringing folks, keeping folks here in Alabama, up to speed on everything that was going on. I'm at all the commission meetings. I'm able to report back certain information. I'm able to host town hall meetings to allow folks to be able to come on and have that discussion and dialogue as well. It forced me to get even more into the grassroots organization here in Alabama. So Alabama, man, we have so many different silos that we was operating in, and I don't really like to put it this way, but they was pretty much non-minority organizations. They had like Republicans for prohibition, vision for cannabis, and then you have your others folks that's here for the patients, that's here for folks with autism and things like that. And then you got this other organization that's kind of saying that they here for the patient, but they here for a little bit of money. It all makes sense. But once I end up joining, once I became in the mix, it's like I became the glue between these grassroots organizations, was able to bring everybody together so we can have this conversation and create a unified effort for cannabis here in Alabama. So, of course, we ain't got our program is not perfect. We don't have what it is that we want to see. However, we have folks now in position. We have those connections. We have those relationships where we can be able to come together and execute, see the things that we want to see, especially now we roll into election year. Like the pressure is on. Like we have to see something come out of what it is that the citizens of Alabama really want.
I like how you called it non-minorities. You can just call us whites.
I try not to hurt anybody's feelings, man. Man, some folks get triggered by just saying anything. So, I try to be politically correct.
No, it was nice wording, Antoine. I appreciate I knew who you were talking about.
I'll say that. They are some amazing organizations. They have some phenomenal members that are very active, and they want cannabis here in the state of Alabama. We got folks that want complete decriminalization of it. They want home grow. They want the whole stretch. And I'm like, man, I understand y'all got a different kind of power that I don't have here in Alabama. I'm like, I don't see that happening here in like this year, but maybe we can work together and see if it can happen in the next 2 to 3 years, because the program is only going to continue to grow and develop. And then, of course, you get medical, then you get smokable flower, then you may end up getting recreational. Hopefully by then we can get decriminalization and then get some records expunged and things like that, and allow more folks to get access to this plant.
And that was wild to me, was when you told me there's no smokable products. So like, even say you told me you're trying to get a cultivation license. Even if you have a cultivation license, if you have a market where there's no smokable products, now you have to have a manufacturing license to turn that into a different product. Is that accurate?
Yep. So it's a few ways I can go about getting my money, as I tell folks in my business model. I can either sell my flower wholesale straight to the processors, and let them process it and do their things with it, and they can make their end product and sell it to the dispensaries, or I can pay a toll fee and they can process it and make my products for me and get it back to me, and I can package and make my own products and sell to the dispensaries, or I can sell my raw product to the vertically integrated folks that may not even have enough, because of course it's going to be a crazy demand for the flower. Off the back, it's going to be a crazy demand for it. So that's why I strategically placed myself in a position as a cultivator, because I wanted to be at the source of everything. I didn't want to play the middle part, and I didn't want to play the end part, because that gets rough.
Okay, yeah, hell yeah. And boy, I'm just running through all my notes here. You said, and this is going to be backtracking a little bit. You said that Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission, on the website, they have a publication of all the rankings of the applicants.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you go to it right now, go to the business application tab, scroll down to the bottom where it says things that says like evaluator data or evaluator notes. It should have a section in there that says public comments, and then it should be another tab that speaks about the nominations of the companies that end up getting awarded the licenses past August 10th. And it also breaks down the criteria as well that the evaluators used.
And also a note here that says we have the option to call for administrative hearing, which would cost you around $40,000.
Yeah, that was true. That was true until a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of my fears.
What changed in the last couple of weeks? And please carry on with that.
Lawsuits, but that was one of my fears. Knowing that I didn't get awarded a license, I knew that was going to be the next step to call for investigative hearing to be heard. And at the time, I guess you say June 12th, when that was true, we would have to pay $40,000, which is the license fee, to be able to get an investigative hearing. Regardless on how that investigative hearing went out, if we end up winning in our favor and being awarded a license, that $40,000 will go to the license. But however, if the hearing went against us and we end up losing, we out of $40,000. And I'm a self-funded company. I'm a self-funded. See, I didn't take any investors' money to get up to this point because I knew it was going to be an uphill battle. So I didn't want to take nobody money with the potential of me not being awarded. So I wanted to wait till I got a license to start, securing my investors. And I got the $40,000 sitting to the side for the license. But I'm like, I don't know if I really want to risk that, dealing with how they already just played me.
I think that's an intelligent strategy, my friend.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we wasn't getting the information we needed from the commission, so I didn't even know what kind of grounds I even stood on to be even challenging. And that's when the lawsuit started to roll down. Everybody needs to know what they need to know so they can better position themselves to be able to secure a license.
And I've got a couple more questions for you here, Antoine, and one of them is about the social equity program. I don't know how that works in Alabama. I'd really like to dig into this. In Vermont, the way it works is if you're Black or Hispanic, I think you automatically qualify for the license, and you have to have a 51% ownership of the company. I'm curious if Alabama has a similar program and if you know how that works.
Yeah, they had something similar to that. Give me a quick second. Close these blinds. Folks looking at me.
You close the blinds for the social equity question.
So Alabama, they don't really have a social equity program, as you say. They do have a clause in the legislation that pretty much reserves 25% of the license for 51% minority owned and operated companies. However, being a part of this industry, you can dress that cat however you like on paper, and I can actually speak from experience when those that recognized me and what it is I was doing in the state that was trying to recruit me to be a part of their process, especially those that was going for vertically integrated license, and those that was outside the state that was trying to get within the state, they were trying to use me to be able to usher them in, and just how predatory those conversations were on how they want to go about things, what kind of salary they want to give me. They're going to give me this made up ass executive position and everything will be renegotiated in 3 years, which that's the infamous, you feel me? They're going to pull a rug right under you after those 3 years. Like, nah, we cool. We hold the license. We're going to go ahead and let you go with that little bag of money. Now you standing outside with a couple $100,000 and nothing to show. Nah, I ain't doing that because my purpose is bigger than me just having a license and me getting money. Like, I'm going to get money regardless. I do that already. But, the opportunity that I can be able to create for my community and those that aspire to get into the space here in Alabama, the only way I can really, truly do that is as a true owner.
And, some of these deals that I've seen in other states, I feel like Connecticut might be one of them. And I know you mentioned that accelerator program there where people only have to get like 10% ownership of a company. And, in Vermont, I get it. The 51% thing, I get that. That means you're the majority owner. And, when you're a 10% owner, I feel like, though, maybe people could squeeze you out of that equity in a couple of years.
You will. you will. If it's a potential for it to happen, best believe it's going to happen. So if my worst case scenario, if I'm not comfortable with it, and it's just me as an engineer just running trial and error, me taking the risk, my risk analysis, if I'm not comfortable with something and if it's the worst case scenario and I don't feel comfortable with it, I can't move forward. I just can't do
it. And before we get out of here, I did want to ask you a little bit about your farming practices and maybe like the spot you picked and how you're going to grow your business a little bit. And I know you said you're maybe doing hydro, but I'd really love to just hear about some of that. And then I got one more question for you before we get out of here that I think is going to be a secret killer. Somebody sent me this. Another grower who lives in Vermont, who is from Alabama, sent me a question for you at the end. But I'd really love to hear about your location and how you're growing your herb and how you'd like to move forward, assuming the state plays ball.
Yeah, so I'm actually in probably one of the best counties you want to be in Alabama. I'm out in Jefferson County, that is right outside the city of Birmingham, which we have one of the most progressive mayors in the city of Birmingham when it comes down to cannabis, which they have already decriminalized cannabis in Birmingham. So I strategically, I just thank the Lord for the foresight and the wisdom and knowledge that he has given me, because I strategically made sure I went to find land that was already zoned for anything that I wanted to do. And once I was able to secure that, it already had utilities on it. So that was my biggest thing. And at that point, I just built my greenhouse with a lot of my research and my methodology on how to cultivate really was on hydroponics. I didn't have too much research or experience with soil, which I dip and dabbed in it with a little bit. But however, just my experience with it and what came out of the soil and me not really being able to correct those situations with the soil fast enough before my plants actually died, I just figured that wasn't the route to go for me. So that's when I started to flirt more with hydroponics and starting to learn more about that and giving myself that blank reference where I can be able to add the nutrients to the plant, so I can know exactly what the plant is getting and what and how it's producing. If I recognize any deficiencies in the plant with hydroponic, I can quickly correct that. So that's how I ended up going. So right now I grow in about a 2,000 square foot greenhouse. Like I said, I got a uniquely drip to drain recirculating system. Our grow medium we like to use is cocoa coir and perlite. I done dealt with them all the way from rock wool. Man, I even thought I had this phenomenal idea on how to cultivate. Man, I had put them all on a grow table. I had like a little fabric in between all of them, so the roots can be able to suck into the fabric and they can all serve each other. But however, I failed to realize, like, what if one of my plants died? Now all of them is gonna get infected with spider mites once they come in and attack the roots and things like that. So yeah, I ended up having to scratch that idea and create something new. But in my new cultivation facility, I got 2 acres already set aside for where I'm going to build my new facility. Which will be a 15,000 square foot facility, about 7,500 canopy space. We'll be vertically cultivating. We'll start off with 2 tiers and potentially 3 tier in the future. Have 8 grow rooms, have trimming. Everything will be automated. Fertigation, irrigation, LED lights, temperature control, humidity, CO2 injections, all of that. And my main thing and my biggest focus, to be honest, is collecting data analytics day one. Because since Alabama is not a flower market, I got a lot of room for error. I can play around and find my desired recipe and desired cultivars I want to grow. And then as well, it gives me the opportunity to start experimenting with different cultivars and possibly creating my own cultivars as we continue to scale and grow in the cannabis space and industry. But we only starting here with just cultivation. Cultivation is just my entry level. My goal is to also become vertically integrated here in the state.
Yeah, well, if you can't sell smokable flower, it seems like you've got to be vertically integrated, maybe.
That's right, but man, it's no doubt that that's going to change here in the next couple of years. And that's with just about any market that didn't allow smokable flower first, especially once the patients start getting their hand on it. They like, no, we want this. And as a representative or a senator, you have to respond to your constituents. You serve the people. The people don't serve you.
Yeah, good luck telling them that.
Hey, because we coming, man. This is gonna be a phenomenal year. Like I'm gonna say this, I learned in the last election we have 500,000 Black folks that was registered in the state of Alabama that did not vote. That is a lot of power. We need to get them activated, and all those other folks that Alabama is unique when we go to the ballot. You ain't even got to fill in a lot of bubbles. You can vote straight Republican or straight Democrat, which I think is horse crap. But some folks get the option to be able to do that. But like, I have no loyalty to no Democrat or no Republican, because in my opinion, it depends on the person is and what his interest is for me. So let me vote and pick the person I feel like is best fit for the job. But I don't know if we're gonna get that anytime.
Yeah, if there is one.
Right. Well, you never know, man. You may see me on the ballot one of these years, man.
I'd vote for you before any of these other fuckers. I
Nah,
want
man,
to just,
you
I
gotta
want
get
to,
encouraged, man, and inspired.
let me just do a shameless plug again. Antoine Mordican, Native Black Cultivation here. We talking, and I'm running out of shit, but boy, it sounds like a bit of a mess down there in Alabama. And how you gonna say weed is legal, but you can't have smokable products? That, to me, that really blows my mind, man.
They don't want the kids to get it, as they say. They don't want it to be palatable to kids. They don't want to be marketing to the kids. That's why they only allow for you to have one universal flavor, which is citrus, that can't be sugar coated.
Yeah, but it's easier for kids to use other products. Like, it's harder for kids to put
problem out here.
It's harder for kids to put weed in a pipe and figure out how to smoke it than to just eat a gummy out of a gummy pack or to hit a vaporizer. Right.
Yeah, we got our youth out here popping pills, man, and they able to get their hands on that easy by just going to their parents' medicine cabinet or their own medicine cabinet. We have to be able to provide different alternatives to that. This stuff that is killing our youth, that's killing our people, that's killing our citizens. Ain't nobody died from weed. Nobody. I know.
Still.
So, we just have to be able to educate our folks on that. And as we go forward, and that's another one of my biggest things in my effort here at Alabama is education, because we have a lot of ignorance when it comes down to this plant. And that's a lot of the work that I'm doing with Tuskegee University. I'm actually in the process of drafting up a cannabis curriculum for educational to go through the black belt to be able to educate my people and bring certifications to them that they can be able to get experience in this space, in this industry. So, we're going to need quality employees, to be able to get into this space. We're going to need knowledgeable individuals as they go to these dispensaries. And what's going to be most important, as I tell folks, we need to create an educated voter.
That's a big ask there.
I feel like it can be done, man. I feel like it can be done. People are starting to wake up. Folks are now starting to recognize, especially with, a lot of folks in the cannabis space, in the industry, just giving me the recognition and the platform, like what you even asking for me to come on and be able to speak to, your audience and to be able to connect with my audience, and also just getting the word out there more. I'm appreciative and thankful for that, because we need more of that.
Yeah. And it's been a pleasure to have you, Antoine. I'd like to thank Paul Valenti too, who put us in touch. I don't know.
Shout out to Paul, man. Paul be out there crazy working.
Paul's a bit of a madman, but the reason I know you is because of Paul, and I would
love
like
Paul madness.
Yeah, I would like to thank him. And I mean, look, I've got one more question, and here's another shameless plug. Antoine Mordican, Native Black Cultivation. I got a question from my dude in Vermont who is from Alabama, who told me to ask you about Milo's hamburgers.
Milo's hamburger. Milo's hamburger is pretty good, but I like their sweet tea better.
So it's some kind of fast food restaurant.
Yeah. It's a I guess it's a Southern chain here. I ain't know too much about it until I came down here as an adult. Man, I done learned a lot about Alabama. It's different growing up as a kid in Alabama and actually living and spending my adulthood, in Alabama. And Alabama got a wealth of things to be able to offer. I would love to continuously give a shout out to Alabama, because what I'm doing now, I would not been able to do in Chicago. The opportunities that Alabama have given me, all the way down to my education, which is my HBCU, even down to my work to be able to enter the professional industry as an engineer, as long as a distribution engineer, was phenomenal. Then just to be able to connect with other local farmers here in the state of Alabama, I love Alabama. And what more can I say about
it? Wow. I've got one comment.
Okay.
Curious if you've heard of anyone working on higher cannabichromine comment. I don't know what the fuck that even means. Cannabichromine?
Higher cannabis. I hate to say that I'm not knowledgeable enough right now.
I think that's a made up word. Harold, I'm about to get out of here, but if you'd like to talk to me more, hit me up on the, I don't know, Instagram at the fine print on journalism. I don't know what the fuck that means. And I think I'm out of shit for you here, Antoine. I always leave the last word for my guests, though. I want to thank you so much. Here, let's do this. Ooh, I want to thank you so much for being here, man. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm glad we got in touch, but I always leave the last word for my guests. So if there's anything we missed, any shameless plugs or shout outs that you'd like to send, now is the time. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you, my man.
Well, once again, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be able to get on here and share your platform with me. Those that are watching that may like what it is that you're hearing or simply just want to support, please visit my website and subscribe to my mailing list at nativeblackcultivation.com or nativeblackfarm.com. You can also follow me on my social medias. I'm very active on LinkedIn at Antoine Mordican, or if you're on Instagram, you can also find me on Instagram at KingTwan84. But ultimately, I ain't asking for no money. I ain't asking for no plugs. I ain't asking for none of. I just want your support. If you see something come up here in Alabama or any opportunity that come about, just think of me and support the efforts it is that we are pursuing here in Alabama, because it's a forever uphill battle, and we have unique individuals like myself here in the state that's willing to put up the fight and push everything forward and ultimately bring a program that ultimately that Alabama win from, especially as well, always down to the residents, down to the patients, down to the business owners, and down to the universities. We have so much opportunities that we can execute here with this plant here in Alabama. I just ask that everybody just pay attention, to be involved, and ultimately support.
Antoine Mordican, Caleb Teskey, the fine print. Remember, guys, the devil's in the details, and the details in the fine print.